All right, so in this video, I want to talk about natural frequency and resonance. When we talk about natural frequency, the natural frequency of a system is the frequency which it'll oscillate at if it's disturbed, if you add energy, if you strike it, any object will have a particular frequency it wants to oscillate at. We know natural frequencies because natural frequencies are the sound that something gives off when you hit it. So if I strike my table here, you're hearing the natural frequency of something that is wooden. And say if I hit my file cabinet, you're hearing the natural frequency of my file cabinet. Now the two sounds were different. The wood that I struck had a different sound than, say, the metal that I struck. You could probably even figure out from the sound of the metal that the sound was sort of like a hollow metal. The reason that you're able to associate these sounds with very particular objects is because each object has a natural frequency. It depends on what it's made out of, it depends on the shape of it, but those two things will give every system, every object that you can add energy to, some sort of frequency it wants to oscillate at, and that's called its natural frequency. Again, you're listening to that. Every natural frequency produces a sound. Whether we hear it or not is different, but they all give off mechanical waves to whatever's surrounding it. A good example of something in what I like to think about when I talk about natural frequency is a tuning fork. If you strike a tuning fork, the tuning fork will always give off the same tone. That tone is a frequency, and we use these in our activity. So that tuning fork had a natural frequency. You added energy to it, and it gave off the tone. I also want to talk about another phenomenon that has to do with sound, and that is forced vibrations. This is going to be really important when we talk about instruments and music, but if you strike something, it will oscillate at its natural frequency. However, if you put an object that is oscillating at some frequency in contact with another, it will force its vibrations onto the other object. This is basically how a guitar works. Whenever you strike a string, the string itself is oscillating at some particular frequency. There's something called a bridge at the base of the guitar where the string is attached to, and that's attached to the hollow part of the guitar. When the string is oscillating, it forces its vibrations onto the bridge. And the bridge, aptly named, is the bridge between the oscillating string at some frequency and the body of the guitar. And the vibrations are forced from the string onto the bridge and onto the body of the guitar. And it's actually the body of the guitar that sends the music out and not the strings. The strings are the source, but they force their vibrations onto the guitar, and through those forced vibrations, they're able to amplify the sound. The last thing I want to talk about in this sort of realm is resonance. What happens if you force vibrations onto something at its natural frequency? So that's a wave incident, some frequency that's incident onto an object. You're forcing its vibrations at its natural frequency. The object already wants to oscillate at its natural frequency. You're putting waves in it at its natural frequency. The object will pick up this frequency and amplify it, and it won't be able to shed any energy. The energy is going to grow, and it will start to resonate. That's what we refer to as resonance. Anything that picks up some particular frequency, and then when it picks up the frequency, amplifies it because it matches its natural frequency, that's resonance. Resonating objects always amplify the amplitude of the frequency, so they get louder. You might have experienced resonance, say if you're in your car and at a particular speed, maybe something on your car rattles, maybe it's the glove box, maybe it's some sort of fender. Why that happens is the fender, the glove box, or whatever's rattling has a natural frequency associated with it. All the treads on your tire hitting the road will give some frequency incident onto your car. At particular speeds, every speed will give a different frequency of the treads of your car. When you hit a very particular speed or range of speeds, that frequency will then be incident on your glove box or your fender or whatever, and it'll start to rattle. We see this all the time. Whenever we hear something buzzing, something humming, maybe there's a light fixture in your house that kind of hums or buzzes, or maybe your refrigerator sort of rattles or hums. All those have to do with resonance and just incident onto something that picks up its natural frequency. And this really is the source of all those different sounds. So we're going to stop there for W5. Try the CAS Learning, and then we will see you again in W6.